Thank you for having me today. And I'm happy to be here and share my practice with you today. Today, I would like to talk about one of the verses from one Buddhist scripture of the founding master. So, in the scripture of the founding master, chapter 7, the principle of the nature, verse 11. The founding master composed a verse for his disciples while staying at Gongle Hermitage on the winding road of Gansan. A rock sits listening to the sound of a stream. Nothing, nothing, but no, nothing either. Not, but not either. And he said, if you understand what this means, you are a person who has awakened the way. Recently, this verse came to my mind, and I had thought about it for a while. And it is ironic that I said I had thought about it because actually, in order to understand or truly realize it, we cannot reach the state by words or speech or thought. But in the past, one of my teachers told me in order to realize or truly understand the principle of the nature at the beginning, we need to think as far as our thought reach. And at the end of the thought, when there is some state where our thought or words or speech cut off, in that state, we can realize it. So even though the state itself, we cannot reach by words, but at the beginning, we need to ponder it and think about it again and again and again. It's like quad. So in the one Buddhist canon, Master Sukhasan said, the principle of nature means to enable us to resolve and understand the original principle of all things in the universe and the fundamental principle of our self-nature. So after becoming a one Buddhist Buddhist minister, the minister in training, when I heard this verse for the first time, for me, it was really seemed difficult. And I was sure that I couldn't understand it because Master San said, if you understand what this means, you are a person who has awakened to the way. So even though I read it, but after that, I didn't have much chance to think about it or try to understand it because I just thought it's not my level yet. I need to practice this and that. So I kind of avoided the principle of nature, these verses in the scripture, later focus on maxim or other chapters. So that's what I began with this verse. But after becoming one Buddhist minister and as time goes by, from time to time, I think about this verse again and again. And then I had some thought about it and then a little bit of understanding of this verse. So I wanted to share this today. So in the past, I thought on the winding road of Gansan, on the winding road of Gansan, in Korean, Gansan 구공로, had an important meaning. That's what I had thought. Because Gansan is where Master Susan began to write the canon of one Buddhism. But lately, I began to think that it does not have that much important meaning, especially for the term Gansan. But it is more like right this time at this moment. because when Master Sutasan said this verse, he was in Pyeonsan. So he starting with on the winding road of Pyeonsan. If he was in Yongsan, maybe started with verse on something of Yongsan or Iksan. So I think at the beginning, on the winding road of Pyeonsan means right this time and this moment, simply here and now. Here and now. And in my humble opinion, the core of this verse lies the next verse, the parents. A rock sits listening to the sound of a stream. A rock sits listening to the sounds of a stream. When I think a rock sits listening to the sound of a stream, I came up with many terms from canon. Just come up to my mind. First, 정신, the spirit, one of the threefold practice. So in the scripture, Aristotle said, the state in which the mind, being clear and round, calm and tranquil, is free from a tendency toward discrimination and a tangent toward attachment. And another term, 이론. 이론 is the realm of samadhi, beyond words and speech. We just did it in the 이론 Sambhao. And that the mind ground is originally free from disturbance, illusion, wrongdoings. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to no self. It all comes down to no self or samadhi. So let's imagine that a rock sits listening to the sound of a stream. It seems like the rock does not have any discrimination or prejudice. It does not have right or wrong or like or dislike or any attachment. Just listen to the sound of the stream. Imagine the valley and there is the rock and then there is a stream of water and the rock sits there and listening to the sound of the stream. I can find it easily in a Great Smoky Mountain nearby. But in contrast, when we listen to the sound, any sound, we have some thoughts, whether we like it or dislike it, or familiar or unfamiliar, etc. So a rock sits listening to sound of a stream indicates, based on the true emptiness, the original source of nature. So this verse revealed the source of the truth of Iran and human nature. And to hear it based on a true empty mind, it becomes nothing, nothing, but no nothing either, not, but not either. In Korean, 무무역, 무무, 비비역, 비비. So it's kind of a double negative. Then what does it mean? Nothing, nothing, but no nothing either. So for example, in Buddhism, we talk about no self, right? We talk about no self. It means that we do not have any permanent existence that we can say as a self. Nothing permanent. Then can you say we do not have ourselves at all? I think yes, the answer can be yes and no. at the same time. Because yes, because we do not have anything that we can say as permanent self, because everything is gathered at this lifetime, and then when we die, it just spread, and then next life come together, like the change of 4 seasons. But no, because there is something at this moment that we can say self, because we are practicing now. There is something that at this very moment, listening to my talk, and then there is some thinking arise. That's the self too. So it's nothing, nothing, but no nothing either. Then what does that mean? Not, but not either. This also what we believe as right or wrong. That concept was based on our thought or belief. And usually our thoughts rise with sensory conditions. But when our mind ground is originally free from disturbance, delusion, wrongdoing, and when we are able to think based on our true emptiness, and then instead of thinking by attached or prejudice or any other biased thoughts, based on true emptiness, it reveals the wisdom, bright wisdom. So in that realm, there is no right or wrong. That can be one of the examples, not, but not either. So in this way, I understand the verse to a certain extent. But here's the more important part. Then I asked myself whether I use the state of mind as the rock in my daily life. From this verse, the more important thing is whether I can use the state of mind in our daily lives. It's just like when we learn mathematics, you learn times table or math formula. But if you don't use it to solve the math problems, then there is no use of memorizing all the times tables or math formulas. It just stays there. And then the application or math problems are there, separated. But only when you use it to solve those problems, you can utilize the times table or math formulas. Likewise, even though sometimes we just fall into the interpretation and really fascinated by the Buddhist teaching, because Buddhist teaching itself is very fascinating because it's somewhat different from real life, and like the 3,000 eons or the time concept is very different, and then all the stories is very fascinating. It's unreal and surreal, so it's very fascinating. But what those stories could bring in our daily life, the difference, and how we could use it in our daily lives. That's the main point why Master Sun made one Buddhism. Otherwise, he didn't need to make one Buddhism because there were already Buddhism. So this verse too, it has Kuan and it has the meaning. The point is, how could we use that teaching in our daily lives? And then I asked myself, do you? And then my answer was sometimes. And then the next answer, very rarely sometimes. It means even though I try to use it, but most of the time, if I miss the chance at the sensory condition at the very moment, and then there is more chance to react by habit or my karmic power. It means habit means just repeated action. So without deep thinking, if I just unmindful at the moment, then just to repeat the same pattern that I did before. Or subconsciously with a karmic tie, it's like magnetic, there is some power. So subconsciously, I just attracted to something and then do that action. So in order to avoid those patterns and then act based on the master student teaching or true emptiness, we need to practice in the sensory conditions. So I tried to use it as kind of mantra, Dharma. So when I encounter some situation, remind a rock sits listening to sound of stream. So for example, there are many examples, but time-wise, if I just share one example, like in the morning, there are many times some conflict between my daughter and my wife and me. My daughter wants to wear what she wants to wear, the clothes. And from my wife's perspective, that's nonsense. So she wants her to wear another clothes. And from my perspective, the time is up. So whether they wear something or not, for me, the most important thing is she needs to go to school on time. So all three different aspects, and maybe they argued. But if I am mindful when they argue each other, and then I just want to say, I don't care whether you wear this or not, time is important. And then if my voice, age, and then from my daughter's perspective, it doesn't matter whether she wear something or not. My father shouted. She only remember that. She doesn't understand she late school or what mommy said. The voice is point. So that moment when it occurs, I think the Roxys listen the sound. So it means instead of judging or just focus on my thought, time is important. Just stop at the moment and then just listen what they are saying. And then when my mind calm, I could see both their points. From my daughter's perspective, she has some reason why she wanna wear that clothes. From my wife's perspective, she has some reason because it's cold, so want her to wear some warm clothes so they're not getting cold. So they all have their point. The only problem is it's almost time to go to school and then maybe late. But they have their point. If I could see that point, and then if I could see that with calmness, without irritation or anger, then even though the same word is time to go to school, has different effect. If I say that word with anger or irritation, even though the same intention, let's go to school on time, but with that irritation or anger, they take just that anger and irritation, not the point. But when I calm down my mind and then I say, let's go to school, it's time to go to school, and then they take the time, the message, not the anger or irritation, because I said with calmness. That I found big difference. It's just one of the examples, but we encounter so many sensory conditions in their lives, and then in a Dharma talk or in some services, we talk some big things, but we encounter some big situations too. But in many, many cases, our mind fluctuates by really trivial things. So each and every moment is the chance to practice and then not only understanding this verse as a fancy verse and very deep meaning, but even without truly understand it or realize it, still we can use this verse in our daily lives. And then a rock is listening to sound of stream also seems like far away from my state of level of practice. But from another perspective, if I can sit still and being calmness 10 seconds or 20 seconds or 1 minute itself, at least that amount of time, I was a rock, just listening to the sound of stream. So it's very realistic and then reachable. So something that we can practice at this moment, not someone who just realized one or great practitioner could do, and not for me, not that concept, but depends on our level. Everybody can practice each of every us. So I think we sometimes the scripture of the nature, the principle of nature, it sounds like exotic and then maybe a little bit hard, but from time to time read the verses, and then even though at the very moment it seems a little bit hard, but something that we understand, try to use it in our daily lives, and then we can live in a better and healthier life, and then our practice will grow. Thank you.